Welcome to Sports Night at Noble's, on location at Firethorn Country Club outside of Charlotte. The NFL alumni have gathered for another charity golf tournament. And joining me, NFL Hall of Fame lineman Joe DeLamielleure, who lives in the Charlotte area now. Joe D, always great to see you. And I love when you guys get together to play in a golf tournament because the golf could be so-so, but the storytelling is incredible.
That's great. That's why we all come. It's fun. I just saw Reggie McKenzie walking out, and Reggie and I grew up together, and then he played at Michigan, I played at Michigan State, and then, of course, we played in Buffalo for about 8 years together. So he's a Detroiter, too.
Yeah, the electric company.
Which is pretty neat. Know someone as a kid and then play with them professionally. It was great.
When you guys got together as an offensive line with the Buffalo Bills, and obviously OJ Simpson comes along, did you have any idea that you would have the success you did? Were there any sparks early on?
Well, OJ was there, and then they drafted Reggie the year before us. Then they drafted Paul Seymour and myself the next year. And the very first game we played, he went for 250 yards. So we go, God, this is easy. Then that whole year was easy. He went for 3,000, or 2,003, and I go, man, this isn't that tough. You know, and then it was all downhill from there. I mean, but for his first 5 years we were there, I think he got almost 10,000 yards in 5 years. So it was exciting.
So when defenses attacked you, I mean, they knew what you were going to do. You knew that they knew this, but you guys still ran it down their throats.
Actually, Jim Ringo was our line coach, and this guy there could be a war in China, and he'd say, Jim, wasn't that terrible about 8 million people getting killed? He'd go, yeah, but what are we going to do about the sweep? He had one-track mind. He didn't care about anything. And he played for Lombardi, and all we did was run the Green Bay sweep. And he was successful because he coached 4 Hall of Famers. I don't think there's another line coach. But he also was coaching when Eric Dickerson went for 2,000. So he had a 6-play package, they call them, 6 plays that we'd run. OJ right, OJ left, OJ real wide right, real wide left, and then Jim Braxton up the middle. And that's how he played. We would have Paul Seymour was an All-American tackle at Michigan, and he moved him to tight end. Jim Braxton was a great tight end from West Virginia and a great blocker, and they moved him to fullback. So basically we had probably 3 tackles and a fullback who could block like a tight end. And then we had OJ, who was a world-class sprinter. And then we just run the same plays over and over. We could fold our game plan and put it in our pocket because we knew it inside out. And that was it. He'd run the same play over and over. Double down, kick out. That was a play, and then run a guy through. Either me or Reggie would run through the hole and OJ behind us. That was the play. It was very simple.
Why do you think the Bills couldn't get over that hump, the teams you were on, to get to the Super Bowl?
Well, unfortunately, the Steelers were in there and the Miami Dolphins, and we'd always get knocked out by one of those teams. And back then, there was no free agency, so you couldn't, unless you got lucky with the draft pick, you couldn't plug that gap that you needed. We needed a pass rusher. Actually, we were trying to trade for Jack Youngblood all the time, and they always wanted too much. Then they actually offered OJ, Lou Saban offered OJ to the Rams for Jack Youngblood, Lawrence McCutcheon, Jim Youngblood, and Jack Snow, and they were going to do it, but Mr. Wilson nixed it, and then Lou walked out. He quit right in the middle of the season. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I do.
And we were all saying, hey, man, that's a good trade because we needed a pass rusher. We never had one.
Wow. So some great years. Eventually, you made it to the Hall of Fame. Talk about that moment, that time when you got the phone call and you were headed to camp.
I've been keeping a daily diary since 1983. My very first page is Ringo was actually drawing up the plays. It's the same play I've run for 8 years. So I'm never going to write this crap down again. I'm going to start keeping a diary for my kids. So I kept the diary, and even on that day when it was January 29th, I was writing in my book, and they told you if by 12 o'clock they don't call you, you're not in. So 12 o'clock came, and I was just writing in my book, well, I guess I won't get in. And then my wife called and said, hey, they delayed it for 15 minutes. Then my next sentence was, God, if I make the Hall of Fame, make it for my wife, because she's gone through, women go through a lot, having their husbands playing football. Yeah. I said, if I'm going to make it for her. And as soon as I wrote that, the phone rang. It was Joe Horgan and said, "Hey, you made the Hall of Fame. Come on down." That was the last thing I remember that day because it was like a whirlwind. But really, the women, I've been lucky. My wife's, we've been 35 years together, and even known each other as kids. So she knows the ups and downs of football, and you know, there's a lot of things that go on that people don't understand. I'm very fortunate. There aren't very many football players married to the same girl, and I married over my head too. She's way better looking than I deserve, but that's the way it is.
Behind every good man.
Yeah, but anyhow, that's when I made the Hall of Fame. I actually thought of my mom and dad because they were passed away, and I was the 9th of 10 kids, and I'm the only one to go to college. And I remember my dad, he told me, "You can go to any school you want." I go, "Oh, great, any school I want." So my first trip in my whole life was on a plane going to Miami, and I saw the Jets play the Colts in the Super Bowl.
Really?
I was at that game, and the coach looked at me and he looked at the other running back, and he said, "You're going to be my guard." He pointed to me, and I said, "Screw you, I'm a fullback." That's what I thought in my head. I didn't say that. And then he said to the other kid, "You're going to be my tailback or running back." That was Chuck Foreman. So that guy knew what he was talking about. So then I told my dad I want to go to Miami because the weather was so nice. He ripped that letter up. And he said, "No, you're not going there. You go anywhere else you want to go, you go." So I go to, the final day came, and I was Bo Schembechler's first recruit. And Reggie was there and Paul Seymour, so I knew those guys. So I told my dad I want to go to Michigan. My dad goes, "I can't even pronounce that guy's name." I go, "Dad, Schembechler." He goes, "It's too hard, I can't pronounce it." And I said, "All right, then I'm going to go to Notre Dame." Then he really got upset. He goes, "Notre Dame, that guy's the biggest phony in the world." I go, what do you mean? "Parseesian, he's not Catholic." He said, "You go to Michigan State because Duff's Catholic." But there were some F's thrown in there. And I was looking for a bolt to be, boom, hit us. So that's how I went to Michigan State, because Duffy was a Catholic. And that's it.
Unbelievable.
And then I went there, and then my dad gave me some other good advice. He said, "When you go there, you look for the meanest, ugliest guy, and you kick his butt." Other words. So I come in. There's the meanest, ugliest guy I've ever seen in my life. His name was John Shinsky. And what's kind of funny, I go, okay, I'm going against him every day. So we battled every day. John was an orphan from Cleveland, Ohio. And we're sitting in a room one day, and none of the Michigan State guys graduate. So I'm looking at my schedule. Games, first aid, football, English, and science. I go, "Hey, John, I don't think we're going to graduate like all these other guys." "Why not?" I said, "These credits don't count. We just get good grades for them, and we can flunk the other two, English and science, and we'll still be eligible." "That ain't going to happen." So he and I both switched our majors. He became a doctor of education with a 700 SAT, and he was an orphan in Cleveland. And I said, "What are you going to do when you're older, John?" He said, "I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to open an orphanage. Treat kids right." Well, he made such an impression on me as a 19-year-old kid. I ended up adopting kids, and we do have an orphanage in Mexico. So things happen in your life.
Yeah.
But I'm a real emotional guy. Like, I really wear my you think Jake DeLamielleure bad. I mean, I get all ticked off about anything, and you know, somebody will call me. I get real upset about the pensions, and I'm not going into that.
Right.
But I get phone calls all day long about the pension. Then somebody nice calls, and I get all ticked. And my wife goes, "You are an idiot. Calm down." And I go, "Geez, I should have played that last year with a helmet. It killed me."
Talk about your business, which you started. It's called Joe D's Bands.
Joe D Bands.
Joe D Bands, and it's taken off like gangbusters.
Well, it's taken 2 years. We're starting to take off. We haven't really made any money, but we're going to. We're in a medical center down at MUSC, the Medical University of South Carolina, and we have Ray Crother, which is the sled company. Anybody play football hit the sled. He came to us, and we made an ultimate band platform, and I work people out. And I'm very fortunate. Bill, I've never had an injury in my whole career where I had surgery, and I never missed a game since 5th grade. So, or practice. Everybody said, "How do you do so well?" I did well because I made every practice. If you practice from 5th grade till you're 35, you'd probably be in the Hall of Fame too. If you never missed a practice, right? I mean, you get good when you don't practice. Guys don't realize when they miss practice or they play injured, they're not quite the same player they would be if they made practice and were never injured. So that I've been very fortunate. God smiled on me with my body. I don't know why, but he has.
How can you tell that a lineman deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, because it's such a subjective position? I mean, how do you know?
Well,
I'm sure there's guys out there who should be in the Hall of Fame who aren't.
There are a lot of guys. Bob Kuchenberg's one for sure that definitely should be in. I see a couple kids that there's no doubt in my mind they're going to be. Orlando Pace, he is a dominant player. Will Shields, I think he's one of the greatest guards who's ever played. He plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, and no one in this room knows who he is, but all the offensive linemen do. You can see greatness in offensive linemen if you played. That's why I've always wondered why there are no players get a vote, because offensive line is a tough thing. I got in for two reasons. One, I played on the leading rush team, and then I got traded to Cleveland. We had the least number of sacks. So I was on two teams, so they said, hey, this guy did both, and I happened to play with great players. If I played New Orleans, I would never be in the Hall of Fame. That's the bad part about being an offensive lineman. But even the great players like Lem Barney, takes him forever to get in because he's never on a winner. And I hate the talk shows where they say, well, he doesn't have a ring. Well, screw you. We couldn't go anywhere. Once we were there, we were there. And the better you were, the less your chance you're getting traded. So there were some great players who sat on some really crappy teams, Archie Manning for one, who never could move. And it kills me when I hear guys like Rome's burning. That guy's a jerk. He knows nothing about football, but he's an expert. But that's why when I say these things, I might get another shot at a radio show. You got to say the off-the-wall things.
Joe DeLamielleure, a Hall of Famer, former Buffalo Bill and Cleveland Brown. Joe, always a pleasure. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.